Guys, welcome back to another Coliseum of Comics. We've got some really cool creators this week to talk with. You may recognize them from their work on Curse Words or last year's huge success. I think it went to like 8 billion printings, 8 billion genies. They're back again this year with something that, again, I talked about this in another Coliseum forum. Sometimes we get to read advanced copies of their new book, Lucky Devils. Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us. It's great to be
Yeah, thanks
here.
for having us.
I didn't say your names at all during that.
Oh
So that
yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
yeah.
we got Charles
So,
Soule. He's done some stuff he wrote Daredevil for a little while. We talked about that.
mhm,
Daredevil argued in
mhm,
front of the Supreme Court. That was like his big thing that people talked about. I remember. Uh
mhm.
Ryan Browne, he's done a couple things here or there. I mean, it's like curse words, right? Was the thing you did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Just
I like that.
just a
Yeah.
few things here and there. They're
Yeah,
Mhm.
they're kind of known quantities in the comics world.
seasoned veterans.
Seasoned veteran. No, these
Mhm.
guys are both pretty much what we would consider rock stars. I'm very happy you guys are taking the time to sit down with us today. So let's kind of jump into it. Obviously we're here to talk about Lucky Devils, but I'd be remiss if I didn't take the opportunities to talk about 8 Billion Genies a little bit. You guys worked together on Curse Words, and then you kind of did your own thing for a little bit, and you came back to the creator-owned space with 8 Billion Genies. And man, that book blew up. Did you guys, know you had that hit on your hands, or was that kind of a shock to you the way it was to kind of everybody else, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was a shock in terms of I feel like we've always made good comics,
Oh
but for
yeah.
that one to connect with people to the way that it did was wild. I mean, I it was a the book started as a hypothetical question that was really fun to talk about. And it was like, what would you do, you know, in a world where everybody got, a genie, and that granted them at the time, three wishes or whatever. And like what would happen if everybody got a genie? And it was a really for years it was a really fun thing to talk about. And I didn't realize how much universal appeal it would have, but you know, friends that weren't nerds thought the idea was interesting. And I was like, oh, okay. Um, and so then when we started making the comic, there were so many impossibilities about how it could actually work and actually be a story. And I actually was not really looking forward to it. And then Charles figured it out, and made it special.
I
Well,
mean,
well,
there's a development period that can be really long at the start of any one of our big projects that we do together. I mean, it was there for Curse Words, it was there for Genies, and it's been there for Devils. And that period is really when we sit down and I usually start doing it with a notebook, and just write in longhand just the ideas of the world, the rules of the world, the things that we're going to be talking about, the emotional themes, the characters. And then at a certain point, I have enough like to dump into a document that I send to Ryan, and then he starts doing some initial design, which then come back to me and inspire me to think of ideas I never thought of before. So that was pretty much exactly what happened with Genies, which is that the initial one liner was Ryan's, right? Like, what if everybody in the world has a genie at the same time? And it did seem impossible, but it also seemed like it might be possible. And so when we were looking for a project to follow up Curse Words, we kicked around a lot of stuff, a lot of which remains in the idea file that we might get to someday. But this one was one that I don't know. I thought it was sticky in a way that I wanted to sit down and try to figure it out. So um, I remember typing it all in, and I was in this very room. This was during the pandemic summer. I guess I must have been here, when I wrote up that document, and then I sent it over. And Ryan was like, maybe we could do it. And I think a lot of it was that we set the comic in a bar, and that's an environment that Ryan and I both like. We both like to go to the bar sometimes,
sure.
and we immediately found we had something we could relate to. So we thought if we could relate to it, maybe other people could too. And that seems to be kind of how it worked out.
And I mean, it really did resonate with people. I think, I'll admit, as a retailer, there's times when you're ordering comics, you're like, oh, I wish I had a do-over on that comic. 8 Billion Genies, top three probably. I
Wow.
think when we talked
Wow.
about it at the top before we went live, I mean that book went to, and I'm not kidding when I think it was like legitimately like 8 or 9 reprintings of number one, um, because people kept finding the book. Like you said, it kept resonating with people, and then it just found this great big audience, which kind of leads me into my next question regarding Lucky Devils. You answered one of my next questions, which was what is your process working together like? But coming off the success of 8 Billion Genies, how do you guys go back to the drawing board and come up with something like Lucky Devils?
Well, I mean, it's very hard. It's very intimidating. You know, it was intimidating while making 8 Billion Genies because, you know, we were 4 issues in creatively when it really started blowing up and having all those reprints, and having people come up to you at shows and tell you how much that they love it, and it's like, oh well, I hope I can figure out what the second half of this is going to look like, and like what so there was a lot of pressure there. So then it was kind of a similar pressure when you have a big success and you're trying to follow it up. um and like, I think we made a lot of smart decisions during the course of 8 Billion Genies, and so it's just a lot of trusting that we will make smart decisions again. Like, there's no way to really like quantify it, but like, we did it before, so why wouldn't we be able to do it again? So, but the amount of gestation and building and back and forth, like, we're still like, now that we've been doing press for this, we're really starting to hammer home exactly what we're doing. Like, it's probably 75% of the way there when you're working on that first issue, and then it's just slowly learning about, just from talking about it and like having to present it to other people and see how it resonates with other people, that really rounds it into the shape that it becomes. Um, so
You know how I
yeah.
would describe it actually, right? Like the thing that you just said that I thought was interesting was the idea that we just are like sort of jumping into this and hope, like trusting that our skills will see it through, which is true. But I think we're also at this point like extremely skilled like musicians, right? Like who, if we had a like, I mean, I'm a big jazz guy, right? Surprise, surprise. And I think it's like we're both really, really good jazz musicians. Like if I'm a guitarist and you're a piano player, we can jump on a stage and make something good. We don't have to, because we have the skill to do it. And I think that's where we are with the projects. Like yes, we don't have the last issue of Lucky Devils finished. I know what's going to happen in it more or less, but we have a lot of room to figure things out on the way, which is kind of the excitement of it. So I think the trust comes from, like, when I work with Ryan on a book, I'm working with like a virtuoso creative person. And when he works with me, he's working, well, I don't know what he would say. God knows what he would say.
Ryan, when you look at
But
this movie, do you think anybody would describe you as a virtuoso?
no, he wouldn't. He was a trumpist.
I describe him as a really good Charles.
Yeah, one of
He's
the
like
best
the
Charleses
best
he's ever
Charles.
worked, is what he would probably say, which is
Yeah.
accurate. I think I could live up to that. But the point is, we just have a groove, we have a rhythm. I mean, we're working on an issue now. Like I'm in this, Ryan's drawing one, I'm writing the next one, and I'm bouncing off what he did in the last one as I'm writing the new one. And I had a script that I liked, but I looked at a lot of pages from him that he sent over kind of in a bundle today, and it made me rethink what I was able to do and what I could do in this one, and why I should do it that way. And that is very typical of the way we work. So there's a level of dialogue between us that it's not unprecedented in the comics that I've made. Fortunately, like it's not totally unheard of. But with Ryan, it's definitely at a level that lets us both perform at our very best. Like the trust thing is really totally there, which is great.
Well, I mean, it's the third big collaboration. I imagine at this point there's a shorthand between you guys in terms of collaboration, right? Like, I mean, you use the jazz analogy, which I think is pretty strong. But you said something, and I kind of want to key on it. You sent over a bundle of pages, and it kind of gave you an idea of where you could go with it. I mean, at this point, do you know what Ryan's capable of? When you're scripting, you're like, oh, he's not going to want to draw 4,000 worms in this one panel. I only used the 4,000 worms because another artist complained about it to me one time, and it just stuck with me.
That sounds great.
Like,
I'd love to draw the 4,000 worms.
4,000 worms, and you give all of them like boots and a cool helmet. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe
cool butts, like the birds.
Yes, big butts. That's a great worm butts.
Right.
Anyway, I think that when I write a script for Ryan, and I'd be interested to see what you would say to hearing me say this, right? I give you I give you prompts and lots of room to roll, and I you within that spectrum, you can either go hog wild or you can be like half-ass. And you're never half-ass, and you're usually toward the level of hog wild that I think is borderline unhealthy. And that a lot of the artists that you love do the same, like Jeff Darrow, and like, you know, the hyper detailed, tons of things happening in the panel, tons of gags that I end up covering up with my stupid word balloons. And so when I write a script, I want to be entertained by those gags, and so I try to leave a lot of room for that. There's something that I haven't told you about in the next script, the thing I'm writing now, that you will, I think you're gonna really, really, really dig. Like, I think you will be like, oh my God, that's so much fun, I can't wait to do it. And it's something that you've kind of been asking for in this series for a while. So
All right.
I'm very excited for that bit.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, so what I think you're hearing is like, we, as much as we're doing this for the readers and we want to have an audience and all that stuff, a lot of this is we're doing it because we really love working with each other. Like, it's a blast.
Yeah. And with Charles's scripts, you know, I never really need more. I mean, there's every once in a while where he'll be like, fill this with some of your crazy ideas, but that's very, very rare. You know, like, it gives me enough, you know, like it's starting is in like structure is always the hardest thing for me. So he gives me great room to play, but he's not forcing me to make like the bones are all there, like
Right.
in all of his scripts, and I think that that's like it's what I'm so used to working from that type of script now that I would be really like if there was more details and specifics of every little element within the background, it wouldn't be as fun for me, I think. So yeah, so he knows like the scripts the scripts are exactly what I feed off of really well. And then I put in a lot of frosting on it to entertain him, and hopefully he gets more ideas from that. And then, you
Mm-hmm.
know, he'll revise, you know, when we do a lettering pass, he'll revise his script based on little things I'll put in there, or um, you know, he doesn't script like he didn't write all 9 issues of the Lucky Devils first, right? Like he wrote issue one, drew it, issue two, drew it, and now issue three, and like so we work in this back and forth space where I talk to Charles as much as I talk to my wife. It's-
That is pretty true. We talk. It is, especially when we're in production mode, it is rare that a day goes by that I don't talk to Ryan.
This is either a
Which is,
very healthy
I mean,
relationship or a very unhealthy relationship.
I think
oh
it's
yeah,
very
pretty good.
healthy, actually. Yeah, it's
Yeah, pretty
good.
good.
Did you
Yeah.
say we good? Or you say pretty good? I would also say we good. We
Yeah,
good.
I'll say both. I'll say both.
We pretty good. We pretty good. Yeah, I mean, we drove around in a van for a month together, and that can change people. And either we would never want to hang out again, never want to talk to each other again for the rest of our lives, or we would become what seems to be like pretty locked in pals who like to make comic books together, which seems to have gone that way, which is great.
And it seems to be going well. I mean, I think the hype around Lucky Devils is there. Like I said, 8 Billion Genies, everybody was surprised. I mean, it's great concept, cool comic, but I mean, there were people very quickly, like shockingly quickly, like disturbingly quickly coming in with like the genie tattoo. And I'm sure you guys have seen this on social media, like the like the 8 Billion Genies tattoos. Like this is like a thing that is happening or has happened, where people are getting like the logo
They're not
tattoo.
showing us if they
Yeah,
if
not
they,
sure
we
has,
I
I've
think, I
seen
don't
a
know if
couple.
we've
Oh
seen a
yeah,
few, but like the one guy
Yeah.
got it at the show, right? Ryan, isn't that what happened?
Yeah, at New York Comic Con, a guy came up to me and he wanted me to um it was like the most stressful job I've ever had. He wanted me to draw him a tattoo, which people have asked for before.
sure.
Drawing at a comic show is not my favorite place to draw. It won't be as good, but he wanted me to literally draw it on his skin with a Sharpie, which I did. And then he went to the tattoo artist, got it tattooed, and then came back and showed me. Like it was wild. That was
Pretty
a
intense.
wild thing.
So we have, and I think I don't know, tattoo culture and comic culture kind of go hand in hand, and we do have like in our stores a few tattoo artists that shop at the stores, which is kind of cool. But no, this is like just random people. That book within months, people are coming in like, "Have you read Billion Genies? Yeah, I read it. Look at this," and then they have the genie tattoo, and you're like, "Oh wow, okay, cool, man. Like that's I'm
Wow,
glad you enjoyed that book." So
that's
Yeah.
great.
the fact that it happened more than once for me, and then this is news to you guys, that's cool. I'm glad I get to deliver that news. But there are
Yeah.
guys walking around rocking your gang symbol or whatever you guys want to call it, um, right now, forever. Like it's there.
Yeah,
That's
forever and
that's
ever.
amazing. I've thought about getting one myself many times,
Yeah.
of the genie, and I think the thing that would be the trigger for that for me would be if the movie's on a screen, like if we're gonna go to the
Yeah.
premiere, I'm gonna get the genie tattoo. Uh,
Yeah.
but as of yet, that's still in process, so we'll see how it goes.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention, and just kind of rewinding a little bit, you mentioned Jeff Darrow. Why is Jeff Darrow like the comic book artist? Like Ryan, maybe you can answer that one because every comic book artist I know that you're like, who do you like? And they're like Jeff Darrow. Like that's like the go-to immediately.
Because like you can just sense the fun that he's having. Like the sense of play and invention is so there. Like his art is lots of exploration through like mark making and drawing and lines and um it's like easier for me to understand its creation than like I don't know, like Darwin Cook or like Chris Somney or someone that like every line is like there's such an economy to it and like it's so hard to do. Which is, Jeff's stuff is hard to do, but in a way that like if you just love making things, like he's the king, right? Like if you just love exploring and adding on and like he's the king. Even like, Mobius is great, but and I love looking at his work, but his stuff is considerably more on the like finesse pretty end, and Jeff's is like roll in the mud. Um, you know, you complain about the government kind of stuff, which is really fun the way he does it. Like just vomiting out pop culture references and uh just like pure unfiltered insanity and like no one else does it like he does it. And yeah, I don't know, it's just really fun.
So now we're gonna to move over to Charles. The first thing I want to ask, is there a way like you can like shift a little bit to your right so that you're not blind by the end of this conversation? Or the
Sure.
left? I guess the left. The right looks worse. There you go. Is that better for you?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It wasn't bad. It was kind of nice. I was getting some vitamin D, but I
Okay, no, no,
will
no, whatever
do
is best
that.
for you. I was just thinking,
Only on like half your face though.
yeah, I was generally concerned for you because it like
I
we're
was
gonna
trying to
get
be
spoiled.
I was trying to do a Two-Face thing. That's a character from comic books.
Hmm.
Have you ever written that character?
No.
Oh, okay. But you have written a ton of things. I mean, you've been everywhere. Star Wars. I mean, uh, is
I've written a lot of other lawyers, that's for sure.
you have yes. Well,
Two-Face is a lawyer, or he was before his face got melted off. Half
here's
of
the
it.
thing that like on just a personal level, as somebody that works in comics, right? Like you're a creator, I'm a retailer. How do you go to an Ivy League law school and then go comics?
Well,
Yeah, Charles.
Yeah,
yeah, I feel like I've been accused of making a terrible blunder. The reality is I always, 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 always wanted to make a living from creativity. That was what I wanted to do. I ended up going to when I was at my undergraduate, I studied Chinese, the Chinese language, and music. I minored in music composition. So like the path wasn't necessarily toward a law office, but then um, there was some family pressure, which I don't think is necessarily unusual for people graduating from college with unusual degrees. And the pressure was go, take the admissions test and apply to some law schools. And I ended up doing really well on the admissions test, the sort of the SAT, it's called the LSAT for getting into law schools. And I got into Columbia Law, which is at the time was the #3 law school in the country. And the sense of it was, and I don't even necessarily disagree with this, like you get into Columbia Law, you go to Columbia Law because the credential is powerful in a way that goes beyond just practicing as an attorney. The problem is a Columbia Law School education is like expensive. And if you need to bleep that, you bleep it. But I mean it. It is incredibly pricey. And so when I got out, it was like, cool, I have this awesome credential. But I have to find a way to pay off the money I borrowed to pay the tuition. So I started practicing law, and
Oh, so you're in the bar and
as I
everything.
could. Yeah, no, I'm a real. I'm not licensed in Florida, so I can't help you with anything you might have screwed up down there. But I am licensed in New York. So I practiced at a big, huge law firm, but almost the minute I could, I started figuring out ways to free my time up so that I would be able to continue pursuing creativity on the side. So I left that big firm after 3 or 4 years, started my own law practice, and then I did that for like another like long chunk of time. And I started an immigration practice. So I was doing immigration law, which is a field that I really did find fulfilling. So if writing hadn't worked out, I would have been fine to do that. It was a good business. But then I started to work on novels. I started to work on comics. I ended up getting some traction with some early image books. I had a big series at Oni Press called Letter 44, some stuff at Archaea. You remember them. And then DC came calling and asked me to write Swamp Thing. And I was able to parlay that into a job at Marvel, because the easiest way to get a job at Marvel is by doing something at DC. And from then, it seemed to snowball really, really quickly. So I was writing 3 books at Marvel and 3 books at DC at the same time, which is quite a few books. And that led to Marvel offering me an exclusive. Say that again?
None of which had Two-Face.
No, none of them had Two-Face. One of them had She-Hulk, though, who is a lawyer. So anyway, Marvel ended up offering me an exclusive to come over to them full time, which I did, which is what got me Death of Wolverine, which was a book that really kind of blew me up to the next level. And after 2 years of that exclusive, they renewed it for another 2 years, which is when I felt like I could close my law firm, because I felt secure enough by that point that I would be able to make a living that would be pretty solid. Like I feel I ran my own business for 12 years. Like I feel pretty confident in my ability to make a going concern, and I wanted to try doing it full time, because the law's not, lawyers aren't going anywhere. If I need to go back, I'll go back. But fingers crossed, I've been doing this for a long time, and hopefully I'll just be able to keep doing it.
So this kind of leads, we kind of went through the Charles Soule origin story, which is awesome. You've worked with some of the absolute heaviest hitters, artist wise, you've worked with Phil Noto, and I mean I could just keep going, but how do you link up with Ryan for Curse Words? How does that happen?
Well, we were introduced by a mutual friend at Hero. I think it was Heroes Con. Pretty sure we've disputed that in the past, but I think it was Heroes Con. And I saw the early issues of God Hates Astronauts that Ryan had done, and I was like, "This is a unique vision." That was what I thought. I also thought it was very, very funny, which is very difficult to do in comics. I remember thinking, "Holy shit, this is actually making me laugh," and it. God Hates Astronauts is funny in a very particular way. Like the frequency of that book's humor is not like, Rob Schneider movie across trying to appeal to everybody with dumb jokes, right? Like God Hates Astronauts has dumb jokes, but they're very specific and very much Ryan's sensibility. And so the fact that this was making me laugh and get invested in all the things that it did to that degree, were I really need to know this guy. And I think I reached out and said how much I liked it, and asked if there was more, and we just sort of started to be in touch. And then we would hang out at conventions after that. And it didn't take it wasn't immediate, but it didn't take a crazy amount of time before we started talking about doing something. And there was an opportunity on during my Swamp Thing run at DC to do a 2-page part of a Swamp Thing annual that was perfect for Ryan. And he did it. It was 2 pages where Swamp Thing goes to the movies, but he can't go to the movies as Swamp Thing because he's a freaky plant monster. So he grows himself a tiny little body out of a kernel of popcorn, because corn is a plant, and so you get Popcorn Thing sitting in the movie. And it's a movie he always wanted to see. It's like the next installment of the series he'd been watching before he became a Plant Thing. And so he's watching the movie as this little Popcorn Thing. and then a mean old lady sees him sitting there or standing on the aisle and screams, and is freaked out. So he has to run out of the movie theater, and he's in despair in his Swamp Thing way because he knows he just can't go to the movies anymore. So that was Ryan's first collaboration with me. I think it was a home run. And then how do
Yeah.
we get to Curse Words after that, Ryan?
I don't know. We did that Secret Wars 10 pager thing. Remember that?
What did we?
Yeah. And then we did, I guess it was after Curse Words that we did that one pager in the
The holiday special.
holiday special, X-Men holiday special.
Yeah, hot claws for Hanukkah.
Yeah, every once in a while Charles brings me into the big two fold to do a little bit of work for him. Um but I was doing God Hates Astronauts at Image monthly and doing, pretty much everything on that book by myself, which was my dream job. But like all dream jobs, it's still a job, and it had to end after 10 issues because the sales were meh. Uh, and so then that, like, I was looking for my next thing, and so that's when Charles and I were like, let's actually do this. What do you want to draw? And so we um settled on this concept that Charles had of a wizard who's a dick. That was it. That was the punchline, or the log line for curse words. And
Mhm.
when I started realizing that, like, if you do a book about magic, you can draw anything you want. So that was really appealing to me. And then as we just started brainstorming and doing character designs and stuff, it got weirder and weirder. Because like original drawings were like, um, I was trying to draw more like a heavy fantasy kind of stuff. And then I think it was like drawing Margaret and being like, I want to draw a koala. I've never drawn a koala before. And then Charles figuring out what the koala would be really made the game, or made it like you could see what this book was going to be a little bit better. And then I did the design for Wizard, which was basically like hipster wizard. And so that, figuring that out, it's like, all right, this is going to be a little bit off kilter and strange. This isn't just going to be, Lord of the Rings. Um, so then we did the book for 28 issues, 29 with the afterwards issue.
28 plus. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Yep.
28 technically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we did one more issue that you can only get in the big, like the compendium, which
Right.
hopefully is on the store or on the store shelves at the stores. I would imagine it'd have to be.
Well,
Yep.
speaking of which, I gotta ask, just from a fan perspective, and this is my favorite part of this, is like I get to lock you guys down and ask like those fanboy questions I have. Any
Mhm.
chance that we'll ever see any more God Hates Astronauts, or is that like tucked in for
No, I mean, I did a new issue. Um, I did a new issue via Kickstarter a year ago, a little over about a year and a half ago, and I my plan was I was going to do a new 5 issue series, and then I got the job working on Barfly with Patton Oswalt and Kyle Starks and Jordan Bloom, and I was like, I don't know, it was just too good, too fun to like to work with Patton and the work in the minor threat. I was and am a big fan of the minor threat stuff, and I really love everything that Scott Hepburn did in that. And I remember reading that book and being like, man, this guy's getting to do so much kind of God Hates Astronauts-y stuff.
yeah.
I'm really jealous about this. And and so when I got that job, I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna draw 4 issues of Barfly instead of the 4 issues of God Hates Astronauts. Because after 8 Billion Genies, 8 Billion Genies was so labor intensive that I just couldn't do that again, and for a while. And so I wanted something that was a little more brainless, like God Hates Astronauts. So you know, I would always love to revisit it. I think it's really, really fun. Um, Image is reprinting several of the trades right now, so that they will be out on the shelves again because it's been out of print for a while.
Mhm.
But they'll be the first and the second are getting new printings. The third's still in print. I'm trying to get a fourth one collecting all the stuff that was in the omnibus, but they will all be back out on January 8th.
I've gotten to write so many awesome characters and comics that
Ruth
I like.
Gator Ginsburg, that was one that you wrote?
Yeah, that Ruth RBG, she pops up in the Daredevil run. That was a big scene. You know, I've told you about that scene, Ryan, when like Daredevil goes to the Supreme Court to argue, and he like literally has to fight them all. Like they all jump off the bench and start beating him up.
Mhm.
It's very cool.
I've
Very
talked
cool.
to 3 people about how excited I am about this interview, and they're all comics people, like either people that like work like artists or people, other retailers, and they're like, Charles Soule put RGB in a comic one time, and I'm like, yeah, everybody knows that. That's
Everybody
like the
knows that.
That's like
God.
that's like his Who Wants to Be a Millionaire trivia question. Like everybody knows that thing. Like we're not even going to talk about it on the interview. Here we
Yeah,
go.
it was weird in the original script. You had Toothface playing that role. So
Yes.
they wouldn't let you use Two-Face for some reason. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
those
I think
fucking
rights
lawyers. You can't trust them. The worst. Gotta watch out for lawyers, boys. Gotta watch
Yeah,
out
you
for
were
them.
just like, hey, why hasn't anyone ever put Two-Face in a Daredevil comic? They're both
Why
lawyers.
has She-Hulk never made out with Two-Face? That's
How come?
That's a really great question. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys are obviously very busy. I heard you're on issue 3 of 9. So I'm gonna let you guys get back to work. Usually we do these Coliseum forums before FOC to kind of drum up the hype. We're a few days after FOC, but we believe in Lucky Devils so much we ordered up. So if you guys are watching this this Coliseum forum either in the store or on YouTube, Lucky Devils is in store January 8th. I gambled a lot of Coliseum's money on this book. There's gonna be a bunch of copies in the store. Please come and buy them.
Woo!
And then get a Lucky Devils tattoo. So next time I interview these guys, we can talk about Lucky Devils tattoo for the whole time. Charles, Ryan, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having us. This was super fun. This was